what the presence process does is it enables us to reverse our journey along that pathway of awareness, to first get into the body physically, because very few of us live in the body. The body tags around wherever we go, but actually wherever we think, there we are. I can think now about my brother in South Africa and be there. And so a lot of us live in our mental. So the first thing to do is to get in the body physically, and then to gain mental clarity about what the causal point of our experience is. And in the presence process, we use perceptual tools and experience, giving the person a chance to enter an experience to see that that is so. And once you see that that is so, or you get that, then you'll go directly to the emotional work. So let's ground this in practicality for people. Normally, for example, say I go to work and I walk into work and my boss looks at me funny and I'm 5 minutes late, right? And the way that he looks at me makes me really angry. So I get angry and I go to my office. And as I was saying earlier, anger tells the best stories, right? So in my head, I tell
you wouldn't be more apt to be fearful losing a job,
mortgages. I may be angry, I may be afraid, but I'm upset. I'm upset. Right. Okay, I walk in, he looks at me funny, and I'm late. I get upset by the way he looks at me. I tell myself a story, whatever. Now, normally what we do is when we get upset, we behave physically or mentally, because we perceive that it's the physical world happening to us, or that the story that we tell ourselves, if we can change the story or believe the story, that we can. So physically I can behave. I can go into my boss's office and go, I've had it with you. I'm tired of you looking at me that way. Here's my resignation. I'm finding another job, right? And what happens, I'll feel kind of good about that because I will change my physical circumstances. And whenever we change our physical circumstances, very quickly we kind of get a high and think something's happened. But a week later, I'll go, oh, what did I do? I don't have a job. I feel... suddenly I'll regain.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right?
I felt like a big shot for about a week.
Exactly, right? So the physical never accomplishes anything, although it appears to, right? I can also do it mentally. I can go into my boss's office and go, I need to have a talk with you. And now when anyone comes to you and says, I need to have a talk, you know that they're in a state of complete delusion, right?
And that's one of the last places you want to be.
Right. So I might go.
Can I 2 weeks later?
So I have a talk, right, and say, I don't want you looking at me like that anymore. And of course he'll go, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Because maybe my boss is just constipated, right? And as I walk through his...
morning.
I walk through his office and he's going, right, because he's actually just constipated. And constipation is a great word because it means can't stop hating, right? Can't stop hating. Constipation is caused by a lot of rage. So maybe he's got his own stuff going on in his... So acting on it physically or mentally never accomplishes anything, right? I end up back in the same place where if I walk past his office again and I see him look like that, I'll be upset again.
Yeah, nothing's been learned.
Nothing's been learned, nothing's been transformed, although a lot has happened, right?
No, a lot of energy, a lot of time,
right, a lot of doing.
Time and attention.
A lot of doing, but no undoing, right? But if someone brings to my attention that whenever I'm upset, that I'm having a memory surfacing, it's always a memory, and that the memory...
something's being triggered.
Exactly, but it's a memory that's being triggered, a memory. And the memory isn't the physical circumstance happening around me or the story I tell myself about it. The memory is actually the emotional signature underlying the experience of being upset, right? So when I walked past his office...
So you would say we have a root experience of being upset as a human being?
We have our memory, our emotional imprinting, underlying all our upsetting experiences, underlying all our discomforts, underlying all our physical dis-ease, whether it's a broken relationship, not having a problem in my job, even physical symptoms, underlying all of those, there's an emotional signature. The challenge we have is that when our emotional body awareness shuts down between the ages of 7 and 14, we become perceptually blind as far as felt perception. We can't, only when you bring it to someone's attention, if someone's angry, they go, oh, I'm angry about that, and you go, you're angry. No, I'm not, I'm just that's happening, right? But if you bring it someone's attention to the emotional component of the experience, there's always an emotional signature underlying any upsetting event. Any state.
Is it always the same one?
No. No, it's either fear, anger, and grief, or a salad, a combination of those. But fear, anger, and grief are the three primary dysfunctional emotions in the emotional body.
But is there one fear signature, one?
No, there's many levels and layers of it. Remember, we're going through, as a child, we're going through 7 years of imprinting experience, and this imprinting is coming from generations. So there's many layers of it. But basically, if you alert that person in the office who's getting upset, that what's happening is they're having a memory, they're experiencing a resurfacing of an emotional signature that was implanted during childhood in their experience with one of their parents, either with their parents towards each other or their parents towards them. And you tell them instead of going to your boss and handing in your resignation, instead of going and having that conversation, that talk, why don't you go home and sit with that feeling? And just sit, say if it's anger that you're feeling, why don't you go home and just sit with the anger? And don't try and fix it. Don't try and turn it into balls of light. Don't try and do anything with it. Don't try and push it away. Just be with it as you would with a child that was angry, right? Because the way we've been brought up is that if a child is angry, we say, don't be angry, have a sweet, go play outside. We stop the movement of the anger. And the part of the child's awareness that's hooked into that anger will never go and play again. And that sweet will become all sorts of other things in its mouth, right? So we don't want to do that to our own anger. We want to just be with our anger. If you be with an angry child, its anger will peak, will go to tears, it will go to a state of peace, and then it will automatically go and play without having anything stuck in its mouth. It's the same with us. If I sit with my anger instead of going into the stories or projecting it out and out of behavior, that anger will build and build and build to a point that I feel like I'm dying. And if I place my attention on where it is in the body, it'll actually move up in my body to a point that will actually shift out of my body, and it may even take me to a point of tears. Tears are a sign of energy and emotion. After those tears, or whatever that experience I go through, there will be an opening. I'll feel this, as if something has been released, or that I've let go of something. Once I've gone through that experience related to that incident with my boss, I will then go to work. I will look at him. I won't have that same encounter with him. Because what was happening initially with my boss is I wasn't seeing my boss. I was probably seeing my father. In other words, if I look at you and I see my father, I can no longer see you, right? I've now entered an illusion. If I then start behaving around you the way I behave around my boss, I'm now behaving in a deluded way. Most of us, whenever we are upset, we're in that state. We've seen an illusion. We've turned this moment into an illusion. We've placed the past over it. And then we're behaving in an inauthentic manner around that. When I clear that emotional signature related to that particular instance in my life, and I come back, it won't be reflected off my boss anymore. I will now see him and won't have this ongoing experience. I will neutralize that experience with him by doing something within myself. In other words, the principle of alchemy, of divine alchemy, is I do unto myself as I would have others do. And there is no exception to the rule that everything about the world that upsets me is a reflection of an integrated emotional circumstance within myself. In my own journey, I found no exception to that rule. If something out there makes me afraid, it is reflecting a fear within me that's unintegrated, that I'm now seeing happening to me instead of actually what's really going on is happening through me. If I am angry, it's related to anger within me that is unintegrated.
So in a present moment situation, you would never have fear?
Well, in the present moment, there is no fear. There's no fear now. Here, in this moment, it doesn't exist. But we can bring it in here anytime we want, right? All you have to do is say something to me the way that my father did that made me upset, and it will trigger the fear.
Unless
I've cleared that. If I've cleared that, it's like you can't make a person angry if they have no anger within them. Not just laugh. You can't make a person afraid if they have no fear within them, right? So our task is, that's why for me, liberation is emotional. It's not physical or mental. Most of our positive thinking is done out of a reaction to a negative circumstance. So it's not about, we can go around all we want saying, I'm abundant, I'm the king of abundance, my middle name is abundant, and all that. But it doesn't change anything, because abundance or not having any money has got nothing to do with physical or the mental. It's got to do with energy within my emotional body that's no longer moving, right? So what is the emotional signature underlying my state of lack? What is the fear underlying that? I need to go and take a look at that. That fear is manifesting as thought processes and as physical circumstances of lack. So there is no exception to the rule that wherever we're imbalanced, if I have a broken relationship, if I have cancer, if I have trouble in my work situation, underlying it is always an emotional signature. All I have to do is stop telling the story, stop projecting the behavior out into the world, trying to fix it by doing physical things, and come back into it and sit with myself and go, what am I feeling underneath here? And go and focus on that feeling. It doesn't mean we don't do physical things or mental things, but if we go around only doing physical and mental things, we're sedating and controlling the emotional signature. Once we are aware of the emotional signature and are working with that, we can do mental things. We can look at our thinking and our physical behavior, but as a response to something that's going on in the emotional body. And once I allow myself to feel that fear, anger, and grief, and open my emotional body, in other words, that fear, anger, and grief are blockages in the emotional body. Once I open those, the vibrational experience, which we can also use the word spiritual, but I like the word vibrational because the religions haven't got hold of it yet. The vibrational experience is one that's happening all the time. But when I have fear, anger, and grief, I can't perceive it. So the opportunity being offered to us now is to integrate what's going on in the emotional body so we can enter felt perception.
So you say we're having this opportunity now that wasn't available?
We're having it now, and the indigenous elders will tell you that of 1999, we entered the emotional body. In whatever vocabulary they use, they will say we've entered a 13-year period of emotional body cleansing. And that emotional body cleansing is to awaken felt perception. And felt perception is a perception we don't use. Children do use it. They have access to it. But it's shut down between 7 and 14 for almost every adult in this world, because it's very difficult to function as an adult in this world the way the world has been with felt perception. Felt perception is the ability to feel the consequences of my thoughts, words, and deeds before I even put them into play. So if I want to hurt you, I'm going to feel hurt immediately. There's a saying, where there is love, there is no law. In other words, when the heart is functioning, when I have felt perception, no one needs to tell me how to behave. Right. My heart governs it, right? And that's
your love and motion.
Exactly. And so that's there's a lot of when we come out of the mental era, we may perceive more conspiracy thinking that we have been shut down. No, we're only just opening up. And we're only now becoming vulnerable to emotional body awareness. And once we liberate our emotional bodies and open up our felt perception, then the invitation there is to be able to feel through the feeling body, to perceive the vibrational while we're in the physical, to be in the world but not of it. And once we are functioning from that place, that's a very different way of being, not doing, but being in this world.
Well, if we're being a different way, we will do a different way.
Exactly. The doing will come out of a state of being instead of trying to find a state of being or sedate and control and the uncomfortable. And that's what bridges heaven and earth. Because heaven is here. I mean, even that great teacher we're talking about said heaven is now at hand. Didn't say wait until you die, give some money,
come back
do a lot of good things to people, and one day you may get into heaven. Saying heaven is now at hand. But heaven, unless you become a child again, unless we go and look at that initial imprinting, and that imprinting is what the religions have called sin. It's passed from father to child, from mother to child. It's passed from generation to generation. And what's totally profound about living now in this stage of evolution we're in is we have not only the awareness but the capacity to neutralize that imprinting.
And why wasn't that available before?
Because we've been moving along the pathway of awareness. We've gone through the physical development. We've developed our vehicle. It's developed now.
So you're saying there was a destiny to this, and there was almost like a plan.
This is a garden, and there's a harvest. And so in the garden, there's physical development that we happen. We developed a vehicle. We spent a long time developing this vehicle. It's done. This vehicle is finished. It's really good. People want to make time machines. Don't worry about this. Is the time machine, right? Develop this vehicle. This vehicle is developed. Then we developed the navigation system, the mental body. The mental body is a profound navigation system. We can put our attention on anything faster than the speed of light. It's not meant for thinking. Thinking is a dysfunction of the mental body. We either know something or we don't. Thinking doesn't help us. Have you seen that statue of the thinker?
Right.
He's still sitting there, right?
Right.
Nothing happened.
With a headache.
Exactly. So it's not about thinking, right? We used thinking and all these things and analysis as a means to develop our mental body. But our mental body is a navigation system, and our emotional body is the fuel. Because real movement is when we make emotional movement. We can go all around this world running away from ourselves, but wherever we go, there we are. But we can stand still in one place and face our emotions and let that blocked energy move, and the world around us will transform. We'll accomplish more movement by undoing than by all the things we do. The real movement comes out of the emotional body. So we have a vehicle, we have a navigation system, and we have the fuel. Where do we want to go?
We want to take off.
Right. We want to enter vibrational. We want to move ourselves into vibrational awareness while we're in the physical, because that's the best game in town, right?
It's the only game.
It's the only game in town, right? That bridges heaven and earth. And that's the invitation available to us now in humanity. And it's been available to different civilizations along the way. Like it was available to the Aztecs, and they left us clues because they accomplished it. They were gone, right? It was available to the Egyptians. They accomplished it. They were gone. Available to many different civilizations. The difference now, it's available to the whole planet, not just a